Hello fellow book nerds, this is Gabby and today we're going to be talking about my October wrap-up. October was an awesome month. I ended up reading 12 books, I think. Yeah, so I did pretty well because September was awful. I read like 3 books and I gave up, so oops. But I've read so many good books and I really want to talk to you about them, and we're just gonna go one by one and discuss them as per usual, as per a wrap-up. So the first book I read was Anne of Green Gables by Ellen Montgomery. So if you don't know, Anne of Green Gables is a middle grade written way back when in Canada, and it talks about little ginger orphan called Anne who by mistake gets adopted by these siblings who wanted a boy, and she ended up being a girl, but they ended up keeping her, so it was all good. This is a childhood classic for me. I really loved it when I was younger and I really enjoyed my reread as well. I read it in the audiobook. I think it's such a perfect story both for adults but as well as children, because it really teaches you about loss, about love, different kinds of families, different kind of people growing up. It's just a really beautiful story. I gave it 4.5 stars. I would highly recommend it if you still haven't read it. Then we're gonna get into 2 books from a video I made this month, which was reading sci-fi. So for this video I was trying different sci-fi books because I'm not a big sci-fi reader, and I read Dune by Frank Herbert and Illuminate by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. So let's talk about this one first. So Dune is like a classical sci-fi. It tells the story of Paul, whose father is a governor on this planet, and then they have to relocate to the planet called Dune. This is a desert planet full of really hard people and really hard environment. There's basically no water. Upon arriving there, Paul's dad gets assassinated, so he has to run for his life, and he finds solace with these desert people. And it's about him ascending to his rightful place and kind of taking revenge, but also learning how to live with these people and that kind of thing. I really enjoyed it. I think it's a different kind of book. It does read a bit old. Like, there's so much dialogue, there's so much exposition, there's so much weird things happening, but I did really quite enjoy it. And I think if you're not into very hard sci-fi but prefer some type of fantasy and sci-fi hybrid, then Dune is perfect because it kind of hits on both genres and is kind of a mesh. So for me, as someone who's a big fan of fantasy but not necessarily sci-fi, it was quite easy for me to get into. I gave it 4 stars, and if you want my full thoughts, I talk a lot about it during my vlog. And that same vlog I also read Illuminate. Illuminate is a multimedia story, so we can have all kinds of letters, different kinds of media telling the story instead of a traditional prose. It tells a story of 2 teenagers who break up, and the same day they break up, their planet gets invaded and they are on 2 different ships running away from the invader because they're being chased through the galaxy. It's a beloved book on BookTube, and I was really pleasantly surprised. I did not think I would like it that much. I thought it would be fine, but I wouldn't be in love with it, but I ended up absolutely adoring it. Incredibly interesting, just told in such an engaging way that I would highly recommend it. I also gave it 4 stars and I was so pleasantly surprised. Next 3 books I read for yet another vlog. This time it was all about reading fantasy inspired by Eastern European mythology. So if you don't know, I'm Polish, which is kind of Eastern European anyway. I was so excited to read some books from my own culture, so I picked up 3 books, one of them being The Witcher, Last Wish, which is the first book in The Witcher by Andrzej Sapkowski. Then we have Uprooted by Naomi Novik, and we have The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. So The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden is a story set in old Russia, and it's a very cold part of Russia, and we have our main character Vasya, who can see the spirits of the old religion, so all the wood spirits, house spirits, that kind of thing, and she can communicate with them. So her mother died when she was born. Her father decides to remarry, and he brings a stepmother from Moscow who also can see those spirits, but to her they're demons, and she thinks that they're there to corrupt everyone and just doom them for hell. So she sees Vasya as this like abomination kind of thing. It's a story about old religion, new religion, growing up and giving up those kinds of notions of magic, but it's also very whimsical, beautifully written. The atmosphere setting was absolutely amazing. I enjoyed this book so much. I cannot wait to continue on. I gave it 5 stars. I think it was a great read, and if you are interested in reading this one, well, first of all, check out my vlog because I talk about it a lot, so I'm gonna convince you there. But if you are interested already, then you could join the read along happening on Meg with Books channel, where they're going to be reading it in November, December the second book, and 3rd in January. I would highly suggest you do so because this book was absolutely amazing. That vlog in general was very successful because I also read Uprooted, and Uprooted, it's inspired by Slavic mythology, so the authors have Polish, so actually a lot of the influences there were very clearly from Polish culture, and we follow the main character Agnieszka, who lives in a town where every like 16 or 17 years or so, one girl from the village gets chosen to join the dragon in the tower to kind of serve him or whatever. She gets chosen by the dragon. So the dragon is not actually a dragon, he's a magician. So she gets chosen by a magician because she has predisposition for magic. I absolutely love this one as well. I think it's such a good book. It's whimsical, it's wonderful writing, setting, atmosphere building, all great, and it's very fast paced, which I was surprised by. There's a lot of plot happening. It's not so atmospheric as Bear and the Nightingale, which I think is more of a book that you want to sit down, revel in the magic, but this one's more like stuff's happening, you know, stuff's getting done. So I really enjoyed this one, gave it 5 stars as well. I read The Witcher, The Last Wish. So if you don't know, The Witcher is all about Geralt from Ravia, who's the last Witcher. Witchers hunt monsters in this world, and The Last Wish is the first book in the series, which is kind of collection of short stories. This book was originally written in Polish, that's why I'm reading the Polish version, and it got really popular with the games as well as the TV show now. Although I really enjoyed this, I only gave it like 3.5 stars because it's just short stories aren't really my thing. It was really hard to get attached, and because I watched the TV show, all the short stories but one were covered in the TV show, so it wasn't that interesting. I think for me to get involved in short stories, I would first have read main story and then get involved, but I heard that it's better to just go as the series goes. So the first 2 volumes is just short stories, so I'm probably gonna read them and then get into the main meat of the story, I hope. But I did enjoy it. I would recommend it. I think it's a bit of a weird writing style that I didn't enjoy, but otherwise it was a decent read, really quite interesting, especially if you haven't watched the TV show, and I cannot wait for the main series to finally start. Next up, I read Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow, which is her 2nd ever book. So Alex E. Harrow is the author of $10,000 of January, which is one of my favorite books of last year, and she came up with a new book. So this book is pitched as suffragette movement meets witches, so it's kind of that. It's all about these 3 sisters who are witches and who are separated quite early in their adulthood, and they're getting reunited after many years. And this is all set alongside the suffragette movement, like I said. So the suffragette movement was all about women's right to vote, but this really talks about the right to witchcraft and the right for women to get rights, basically. Absolutely love this. I was so wonderfully not surprised because I think I would like it, but because I love $10,000 of January so much. I was a bit worried that it's not going to live up to the hype I had in my head, but it was absolutely lovely. I have a dedicated review for it if you wanted to know like every single thought I had while reading it. I'm really going into detail there, but suffice to say, I'm going to be reading more from Alex E. Harrow, and I absolutely loved her writing. I gave it 5 stars and I would highly recommend it. Next up are books that almost broke me, and it's The Devil's Thief, which is the 2nd book in the Last Magicians series. So Last Magicians is all about this girl Edna, and she knows how to travel in time, and she gets an assignment to travel back in time to 1900s New York to kind of find these magical artifacts that will help save the world, because in this world there are different types of mages, magical people, but they're being persecuted and they can't leave New York because of this thing called the Brink. I enjoyed the first book so much. I gave it 5 stars. I read it in like 2 days and I was in love. I started the 2nd book the moment I finished the first one, which is a mistake, and it took me 2 months to read it. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't good either. It was like everything that happened was fine. The writing was still good, but I don't need to know a tertiary character's color of lace. I don't need to know from perspective of every single character that ever came into your head. I don't need to know this. It was so hard to get through. I mean, honestly, probably my bad, but this book is like 600 or 700 pages long. Not that much really happened when you think about it. No, almost nothing happened, okay? And then we just go on and on and on and on about every single character's plotline, storyline, and then half of it is in the past, half of it is in the future, so half of it doesn't even matter. I mean, I was really frustrated. I had to switch to the audiobook halfway through because there's no way I had absolutely zero inclination to pick it up. Every time I picked it up, I got bored after 2 pages. I just couldn't read it, so I switched to the audiobook, which I hated. Like, it's such a bad audiobook. The narrator sounds like she's in her 50s, but the main character is only 20 years old. This is not attacked on the audiobook narrator. I'm sure she's fine, but I just don't think she was suited for this role, for this book at all. I did not understand why she sounded so old, had this really weird rasp to her voice when there's not a character in this book that's over 20 years old. If this were like Uprooted, let's call it, and okay, it's like an old babushka telling a story or whatever, fine, okay, but this was not it. I just don't understand. But anyway, the book was bad, but it helped me get through the book because I just listened to it every time I went on a walk, which is once a day. So, you know, it almost broke me, almost put me in a reading slump. It's one of the reasons why in September I only read 3 books, because I knew I had this book to finish, but I just didn't want to pick it up. And the funniest thing is, I'm gonna read the 3rd book because like the last bits was so interesting and the last like twist was really good, and the whole book itself was fine. Like, there was nothing wrong with it physically, like physically hurting me, except for the length and the amount of detail we went to unnecessarily. So that book pissed me off, because when a book almost puts me in a reading slump, it pisses me off. So I think I gave it like 2.5 stars or something. It's not that bad, honestly. Like, probably deserves like a 3. And I was really disappointed because I had such high expectations. I don't know how you go from such a good book to just such a slow slog of a book. My favorite part was the romance in the 1st book. In this book, the romance pissed me off so much. I mean, the same thing they would tell us 50,000 times. We would hear how he wants this and she wants this, and they want the exact same thing for the whole book. So why are we hearing about it for the 50th time? I don't understand. Whew. I needed to get it off my chest because that's been in my mind for a while. Now, from the worst sequel possible to the best sequel possible. Best sequel possible, which is King of Fools by Amanda Foody, which is the 2nd book in Ace of Shades trilogy, and I love this trilogy. I need more people to read it. Read Ace of Shades, please. Ace of Shades, if you don't know, it's all about Esta, who is a proper lady. She goes to finishing school. She's really excited to make her debut in the society, but her mother doesn't come back from one of her missions one time, so she goes to the City of Sin to find her mother. And City of Sin is run by gangsters and drug lords and that kind of thing, and one of these gangsters is Levi, he's in debt and he has to figure out his scheme very quickly. So they team up, he helps her find her mother, she pays him some money, that kind of thing. The best romance in the whole wide world ensues, and I loved it. I mean, I loved the 2nd book, which I cannot tell you how relieved I was that I loved it, because I hated the Last Magician 2nd book so bad. I was like, please, please. I was already planning a worst sequel ever video just because I was so scared. So I'm doing a buddy read of this actually with Kira and April, and both of them read it before me and said it was really good but a bit slow. So I was like really scared. But I wouldn't even say it's slow. It's so much happened. It's just so good and interesting. There's a girl gang coming into this book. I mean, honestly, the friendship, normally I hate new characters that come into the 2nd book. I loved all of the characters. It was amazing. Honestly, my one complaint would be that the relationship that I wanted to happen so badly kind of happened, and then we barely got to see it. I feel like there was so much build-up, and then like the payoff was so small that it hurts. But I'm sure in the 3rd book is gonna wow us. I'm gonna read it next month. I'm taking it with me, and that's the one book I allowed myself to take traveling with me so I can read it. And honestly, this was so good. 5 out of 5. Read this series. And last but not least is kind of a big one because I finally finished the Percy Jackson series. So I've been reading for a while, but I managed to finish the Percy Jackson series. So Percy Jackson series, if you don't know, is 5 books, and I read the first 2 like a couple months back, and now I was like, okay, I can at least read the one this month, because I ended up having some time at the end of the month where I wasn't filming like dedicated reviews or dedicated to vlogs or whatever. And then I read one a day. One a day. I haven't done that in ages. I know it's middle grade, but still. So yeah, if you don't know what it's about. So Percy Jackson is a middle grade series following Percy, who is a bit of a special kid. He has ADHD and he has dyslexia, and he's always found it really hard to fit in. And one day he finds out that he's a son of a god. We don't know which god, but he's a son of a god. Greek god, by the way. They're Greek gods. Anyway, it's very dangerous for the children of gods to just like live their lives. So they have to go to the special camp called Camp Half-Blood, and that's where all the adventures ensue and blah blah blah. I read this series when I was a kid and I absolutely adored it, and reread it just now. I think when I was a kid I also read 1 book per day, and it's just so good. It's an amazing series, all about friendship, and it's so fast paced and filled with adventure. It's gorgeous. I don't know what to tell you about any of these. Actually, I will say that the first 2 books I remembered very closely what happened because of the movies, which like roughly followed the plot, I guess. These ones I didn't remember anything. Out of these 3 books, I remembered one scene, which was Percy and Rachel lying on the beach. And that scene didn't really even happen how I remembered it. I was like shocked, as if it was the first time. So you know what, it's gorgeous. And the fact that I can still be so engaged and so shocked, like when I'm 23 as I was when I was 13, is just mind-boggling, absolutely amazing. I would highly recommend this series. I think I gave all the books like 4 stars. I'm going to be continuing into the Percyverse, so I think I'm going to pick up Heroes of Olympus next. My only complaint is like all the UK editions that match for all the series are the really ugly ones. Like I bought this one, but it's so ugly, but it was like 10 quid for the whole series, so I bought it, but it's ugly as hell. So ugly you are. But I still love you, but you're ugly. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, tell me your favorite book from October. Put this emoji in the comments if you lasted this long, because I want to give you a special thank you. Not in a creepy way, I just want to say thank you for being the best. That's it for me for today. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you could comment, like, subscribe, I would appreciate it so much. But I hope you have a lovely day. Bye!